Good afternoon. My name is Mike Greenier. I'm your Director of Water and Wastewater Sewer Services. I'm here to present the FY25 budget for the water and sewer funds, and these are led by both myself and Phil Carwatt, the Director of Public Services. The water and sewer funds have a total request for FY25 of $99,835,306. And we'll go through the slides and break out some of the bigger components of this. So let's start with sewer. Sewer's Fund 590. Right now we're anticipating revenues of $38,283,207 with corresponding expenditures. With these expenditures, these are talked about through our rate study. Everything that you're going to see through this presentation ties back to those rate studies. Our spending plans, our spend down plans, and our capital spending has all been baked into the cake of our rate study. So nothing that we're talking about today is going to be driving a rate increase. Just to talk about the treatment plants and the water and sewer services division real quick. The treatment plant has a capacity of 35 million gallons a day. Of that, 7.2 million gallons are in household. Looking at about 10.3 million gallons of that being industrial commercial. Because we are a combined sewer system, we do have 7.5 million gallons of stormwater that comes into our system for right around a total of 25 million gallons that we're seeing every day. Besides the sewer treatment plant, we also have 7 retention basins. These RTBs are used to treat the stormwater when we have more stormwater, a large rain event, that lets us go ahead and treat that before it hits the river. Otherwise, we don't have the capacity in our treatment plant. That's why we have those. When you have an event that has over more than 1 inch of rain in a day, you can figure those RTBs are going to be moving. The maintenance and sewer division, these are the folks that are out taking care of the pipes. So there's 306 miles of sewer collection system. And so they're out fixing leaks, breaks. The cable company shoots a line through one of our sewers while they're going ahead and doing their installation work. Those are the folks that are out there fixing that. We're also taking care of staking, locating, utility billing, meter reading, and then helping with construction. So the sewer fund, we're looking at $32,170,739 from FY23, 24. And our proposed spending, pending your approval, is $38,283,207, which is a $6.7 million increase or 11% from last year. And as I spoke of earlier, this is a planned event. We had some money in savings, and we've had some budget carryovers that we've done, and then put ourselves in a position for this capital work that we're looking at. Right now, the main driver on these increases is the surplus fund. That's up almost $5 million. And then the rest of the increases, there's a little bit in inflation, but for the most part is either the engineering or those small projects you need to do to make the big project go. There's additional planning underway at this time, and then when we talk about revenues, there's a state revolving fund ask that just recently, the plan was recently passed by this council, that we're looking at $18.8 million being sought for FY25. And that is part of a 5-year package for over $40 million. So while we're looking to spend money, we're looking to secure more. Here's your breakdown of the different divisions that are inside the sewer fund. You're looking at engineering and administration, and this is all under the Phil Carwatt side of the house, public services, the meter maintenance and service, the folks that are fixing the lines, catch basin cleaning, that's a whole separate crew that's out there cleaning catch basins, and then utility billing. On the water and sewer services side, you have administration, so that's myself and my group. Process controls, those are the folks that are running the computers that actually run our systems. Treatment and pumping, those are the folks that are actually treating the water when it gets to the plant. We have small asset management division, that's somebody helping us keep track of everything that we have and making sure we're taking care of it. Remotes facilities, those were those RTBs I was talking about. The surplus division doesn't have any people, but that's where all the money hides. That's where we do our construction from. a little bit from bonds that we're not using this year, and then we have to spend some money to pay off our bonds, which you'll see on the last one. So there's 13 different divisions. We're all different, but we're all work together, whether we like it or not. We all have to spend out of the same pie, so we're talking a lot. I'm going to walk through a couple of the major purchases, big projects that you're going to see inside the budget. All of this is enumerated out. I'm just going to go ahead and pull forward some of the large stuff. So under vehicles and large equipment purchases, you're at about $350,000 this year. Most of these monies are all split between water and sewer, so I'm not going to duplicate myself. I'm just going to go ahead and enlist them here, and then you won't see them again on the water side, but all of these purchases are split 50-50. And that's a couple of 3/4 ton pickup trucks, new dump truck, replacing one of the regular vehicles, new cat excavator, hydraulic sweeper, and a big air compressor. So those are the big ones. And then through each of the individual divisions, you'd be looking at engineering. They're looking at $20,000 to test materials, to test the asphalt, to make sure the concrete's slumping correct. Process control right now is most of their big costs are all tied up in supporting the software that we have. So that's contracts for our SCADA system, which is what runs the plant, or the contracts for our software for meter reading, and then some of those software needs. Meter reading, they're paying a bunch for new meters as they replace their meters, their smart portals. Maintenance and service, it really gets down to parts. So the things they need to make road patches, asphalt, professional services, and then cleaning and televising. Those are some of their large number items. Catch basin cleaning, they've got to get rid of what they clean. That is their large cost driver at $150,000. Treatment and pumping, chemicals is our large cost, along with electricity. We're spending just short of, or just over $750,000 is what we budgeted this year for chemicals. And along with parts, get rid of the solids as we have them, and electricity are our big drivers. Remote facilities, again, it's chemicals that we need to treat and make sure that water is safe to put back in the river. And then we're seeing some other things around our remote facilities with some data projects, general repairs, things on that order. The surplus fund, which is huge this year, is going to be professional and engineering services for the projects, is just short of $1 million, with $12.5 million worth of projects to repair and replace things at the treatment plant and out in the system. I'll talk about some of the sewer projects related to road work. We've got a large project on Jefferson from Hoyt to James, project on Sheridan from Tenor to Hess, 17th Street from Walnut to James, South Wheeler Street from West Michigan to Garrett, Hess Avenue from Jefferson to Sheridan, and then the Adams and Cass Street from Michigan to Niagara. And this just lists out some of the major road projects. And as we're doing these road projects, that's not us just, okay, hey, the sewer's fine. That's replacing all the catch basins. That's making sure all the appurtenances and other doodads that go on the pipes are replaced so that we can do this all in one fell swoop, that we don't have to come back 3 years later and clean up and poke holes in a nice shiny new road. Things that some of those other divisions are working on through that is they're televising those lines before we do anything with them. Some we just have to line, some we just have to clean, they're fine. But we've got to get out there and know what's going on. Talk about some items that either things that I want to highlight or things that we're looking down the road, because while this is the FY25 budget, we're looking out 5 to 7 years and even longer than that on what do we need to be doing, how do we need to set the system up to make it better and be smart about using the people of Saginaw's money. So right now I've got a $400 million state revolving fund to ask that was just submitted to the state of Michigan. We're kind of wondering what will happen if we actually get all that money, because it will put a little bit of push on staff, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. And then with all these projects that were coming up and all the different bonding and granting opportunities that we have, our capital project list is going to be a little bit fluid right now. I'm not a big fan of ambiguity, but the ability to get free or very reduced cost money from the state or the federal government is going to necessitate us to be in a little bit fluid on how we arrange our projects, and just need you to know that we're looking at all of this. The other big item that we have on the list is our RTBs. They need work. We've had those evaluated by engineers. We're going to go deeper dives into that. But there's going to be significant work on those remote treatment basins as we move forward. And again, as I've spoke, we're seeking funding from congressional earmark requests, the state revolving fund projects. We've retained some consultant engineering firms to help us with those requests. And then just to make sure I claim one win while we're here, we went ahead and received $500,000 towards planning. So we were awarded a planning grant, and you're going to see us use those monies to go ahead and look at some things on the water side, and we're working hard on the sewer side the same way. That takes us to the water fund, 591. Right now, we're projecting revenues at $61,552,099 with corresponding expenditures because we run a balanced budget. And again, the water fund is both underneath myself and Phil Carwad as your Director of Public Services. This is a 24% increase from FY 23-24. The reason for these increases, this is a planned event. This is planned spend downs of money that we had in savings. It's planned that our budget surpluses that we've run for a little bit. The table was very, very well set between Phil and then Paul, your last director for treatment services, that we knew we had a lot of capital planning coming up, a lot of capital work, and they did a really nice job of saving up for that, making sure we're in a spot to do that work. One of the other things to know about the treatment plants, as you probably all well know, we've been operating on the same site since 1929. So you have a very old treatment plant. We're working hard to take care of it. And it's about the third, fourth largest treatment plant in the state of Michigan in a beautiful facility. I want to talk about maintenance and service on the drinking water side. They take care of the 411 miles of distribution pipe. And again, that's making repairs. Hey, there's a leak. Investigating new startups. You want to start up a business, you need a water line. These are the folks that are going out and do that. They're also replacing hydrants, flushing hydrants, staking utilities, any of that sort of thing. Continuing on to the fund again, FY 23-24, it was just over $49 million. This year we're coming in at 61. It's a 24% increase, almost $12 million. But again, this is planned and should not have an impact on rates. We're going to be able to do a lot of capital improvements to the system, which needs it. And with that, this is a planned, and people have done a good job to make sure that this happens. I'll walk through some of the different divisions inside of the water fund. On the public service side, cross connections. Those are the folks that are doing investigations out in the system to make sure that nothing bad is coming in from the pipe side of things. And engineering and administration, meter maintenance, those are the folks that are putting the new meters in, checking the meters, making sure that we can bill so that we can pay for what we have to do. Maintenance and service, those are your folks that are digging up the pipes, replacing lines. And then there's our newer division, line replacement. This division is about 6 years old now, and that comes out of a mandate from the state of Michigan that we have to replace every lead service line in the next 20 years. So we brought on a crew of folks to do that, and they've actually replaced, was just talking this morning, over 4,000 lines have already been replaced by either by our crews or contractors. And I'll talk a little bit more about lead here in a minute and where we're at on that. We also, inside those divisions, is our accounting, so customer billing. On the water and wastewater side of it, you have administration, process controls, those are your computer people. Treatment and pumping, that's your nice old treatment plant. Somebody to keep an eye on the assets. Raw water, that's the money that we send up to Whitestone to go ahead and make sure that we've got raw water as part of the water corporation. Most of the surplus is where the big money's coming out of. It's $28 million this year. And a little bit from bonds and paying off our other bonds. Go ahead and break down some of the major purchases coming out of the water fund. As I talked about earlier, the purchases you saw on the sewer side are split 50-50. These are the only ones that are not, and that's a new pickup truck for the water plant along with a new mower. And then the rest of those are split 50-50 with sewer. Other major projects that are going on, and again, you're not going to see me talk a lot about the road projects because, again, those are covered at the same time with those sewer projects. So right now I've got almost $35 million worth of capital projects that we're gonna be going for. There is a water tower that right now we're estimating out at $18 million. Birch Run parallel pipe, $2.4 million. Improvements at the treatment plant of $1 million. We're getting ready to let the bids out to go ahead and replace the electrical switch gear at the water treatment plant, which speaks to reliability. That's looking to be right around a $6 million project. And we'll be continuing year 2 of working on the masonry and the roofs at the water treatment plant. It's a beautiful old building, but a beautiful old building needs work. So we've got crews that'll be up there to go ahead and make sure that we're taking care of that. Along with that, you'll be seeing lead service line work because of the grant we received. That's a 3-year grant for $5 million. It's almost $1.7 million worth of lead service line replacement work that we're doing. And that's contracted work and work that our own crews are doing. And we're able to charge both of those against that grant. I'll pull out a couple of the divisions on some of the bigger things that they spend their money on. Materials and testing for engineering, process controllers, SCADA upgrades, tower repairs, radio systems. So it's basically if we break something, they've got to bring somebody in to fix it. Meter maintenance, it's meters, parts. Maintenance and service gets into repairing the asphalt on the road, buying new pieces of pipe, professional services. Sewer line replacement, again, it's getting into patch repairs, because if they're out looking at digging up lines, they've got to go ahead and get that hole filled back in. At the treatment plant, we spend $841,000 a year in chemical costs, which is only exceeded by what we're spending for utilities, and we're budgeting $1.2 million for electricity this year, which is actually holding steady. The other things that we're up to that way at the treatment plant get into just parts, fixing things, engineering things on that order. Where you're seeing the big spending is coming out of that surplus division, and has almost $4 million, or just over $4 million for engineering, and $23 million for construction projects. The water bond, we're pulling out $6 million for that switchgear project, and that'll be all pulled into out of that bond fund. Road projects, the water department's going to go ahead and participate in all of those. Those are listed on the other page as well, so I'm not going to walk you through those. But again, that gets into the same thing that we're doing on the sewer side. We're making sure that the hydrant's replaced, all the valve boxes get replaced, so that when we're done with the road, we're done with the road. That's a big focus of the department. It helps save everybody a lot of money that way. I'd like to talk a little bit about the lead service lines. You will be receiving, or at least council will be receiving, a report here in the next month or so on where we are and a big breakdown of our lead service lines. So I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I would like to talk about it a little bit. So after the Flint water crisis, the state of Michigan's mandated that we have to replace all our lead service lines. Right now we're estimating that is to be a total cost of $50 million. And then so far we've received $5 million from the state revolving fund to go ahead and help replace those, along with the funds that come from that $6 service charge that's on everybody's bill. So as we receive those funds, we're out actively seeking more money. We're asking for another 3 years on that SRF loan right now. That'll be out. As we can stack those monies, we'll try to replace more service lines. The other thing that we have to do as part of this work is to inventory our lines. Saginaw did something I think was a really darn good idea. There's 2 ways for you to catalog your service lines. You can do a sample and then do a tighter estimate, or you can go out and pothole every service line in your city and know exactly what's in the ground. That's what Saginaw chose to do a couple years ago, and it's paying off for us. So right now, the Maintenance and Service Division has identified 4,633 lead service lines, over 20,000 non-lead service lines, and that only leaves us 3,000 service lines to verify before October. October of '24 is our deadline to have that inventory completed. That is rocking and rolling. Crews are out doing that as I speak. But the thing why this was was wise of the city in the past to decide to do those individual verifications. Right now, we're looking at having somewhere around 5,000 lead service lines to replace at the end of this whole deal. We were estimating that number to be out towards 18,000. That's a lot, and it gets into real numbers, real costs, and what we have to plan for. A little bit of what's going on in the treatment plant. One of the big studies that's going on at the treatment plant was to optimize how well are we treating. Are we treating for lead the right way we're supposed to? Right now there is a loop study going on where we dug out lead service lines from our system that have been exposed to our water. Those are now mounted inside the treatment plant, and we're running different treatment chemicals through those service lines. This is part of a $200,000 study that we entered into with Fishbeck Engineering to go ahead and look at that. Are we doing the right thing for treatment? This study is going to take at least another year to complete, but that's one of the things that when I talk about studies, those are things we're studying. We received that $500,000 grant that's going to help us be able to go ahead and study what is the future of the treatment plant. A big, beautiful old building, but it's time for some work. What should we be working on? Which direction should we be going with that? We need to provide a little bit more service going west to our service area. How do we go about that? What's the best way for us to go about that? We're due for a reliability study, so we're going to have that taken care of out of this grant. And then, like any good engineering firm, we were able to score money to look for more money. The big project that's on tap for this year, those bids this is currently out for bid. We had our first pre-bid meeting last week. There are primarily 2 tank companies in the country. Both of them were here to bid on this job. We're estimating that water tower is going to come in at $18.5 million, and we're going to be building a 3 million gallon a day tank. We'll get a lot of questions on, well, why do you need a tank now? You've been running for almost 100 years without one. It's because stuff happens. And then particularly with the electrical deregulation that's coming down the pipe, losing the big power plants. So if you have distributed generation, you'll also have distributed risk. So right now we've got 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes, depending on how much time or how much water we're pumping that day, to get our backup generation on if we lose power. By putting in this tank, we'll basically buy ourselves 2 to 3 hours. If you lose pumping, which is what the case is right now, you would have those 2 to 5 minutes before you have to go into a boil water notice. By building this elevated tank, it buys you, me, my staff, the time we need to go ahead and figure out what's going on to get things going so that we're not in that situation. We received $15 million from the state revolving funds as forgivable loans, so which means free money, for us to go ahead and build this tower with the remaining funds to be taken out of surplus. Just some pictures of some of the things that we're up to. As I said, this was the end of phase 1 of the work at the treatment plant. So you saw a lot of scaffolding around. That was actually to protect people because some of the bricks were loose and falling. But they were able to get up there, do all that masonry replacement work with the correct type of mortars so that we can keep this building around for a while. So we're into phase 2. That's another $1 million, plus we'll be looking at a new roof on some of the facility as well. Some future projects and things for you guys to be aware of. We'll be looking at our raw water transmission. That's probably the weakest after the tower, the weakest point in the treatment system that we have. And what that it means is there's a section coming down from Whitestone that only has one pipe, which if you have one point of failure, that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. And we'll be looking at what do we want to do with that. Is that putting in another line? Is that rearranging some things and borrowing a different line? But we'll have a study going out on that. To look at our finished water transmission, those two kind of correlate together. We're going to be looking at the treatment plant. Thing's been in service for 95 years. What do we need to do for it, to do to it, and what puts Saginaw in the best position going forward with their drinking water. And again, there's some other things, distribution improvements and then lead service line improvements. Just to talk a smidge about how we actually decide what to tell you we need to spend money on. It gets down to level of service. So how old are our assets? What is a failure rate that's acceptable? Do we have redundancy? When I talk about that single raw service line, or I talk about building that water tower. Those are things that build redundancy for us, because my whole goal in life, your goal as a council, and then the good people of Saginaw, is that you turn on the tap, water always comes out. You flush the toilet, it always goes away. So that's what we're always focused on. Pressurizing, protecting the system, that gets into pressures, our chlorine residuals, our cross connections inspections. Those are things that we do because we have to protect the water system. And then every decision we made is viewed through a funding lens. Everyone that works in our system, everybody here on this council is very well aware that anything we do to water rates impacts our customers. So we're looking at costs. Is that benefit that we get worth the cost? We just took one of those items off the table that way. We had been looking at maybe adding a second sewer line across the river. Well, we looked at the cost-benefit ratios on that, and right now it's not looking like we want to do it that way. We may want to look at doing it a different way. We're going to have a study on that to see if we can find a way to skin that cat that doesn't cost us $30 million. But we're always focused on the impact on rates, and then when we have our studies, we spend to those studies.